Hello, everyone. This is Coach Corey Doggs of actionCOACH, and I'm excited to have Jamie Valenti-Jordan, the CEO of Catapult Commercialization Services, with us today. Jamie has over 20 years of experience in the food industry. He's led the successful launch of over 1,000 products, managed the construction of multi-million-dollar production facilities, and received a patent in tomato peeling. Prior to Catapult, which he founded in 2018, Jamie spent his 20-year career at Campbell Soup, Del Monte Foods, and Just in process research and development, engineering, and operations. He teaches food engineering and food processing at Mount Mary University and serves on the board of directors for IFT. He's a strong advocate for emerging and scaling brands and also serves as Cub Master for his son Scout Pack. Catapult Commercialization Services is a 90-person consulting group focused on providing technical and operational solutions for food and beverage companies. Catapult empowers brands and ingredient suppliers with strong technical and operational solutions. Whether your need is scrappy commercialization, ingredient application research, or an in-depth technical analysis for quality and/or cost improvement, Catapult has the team to help you excel. Something unique about Jamie is that he is a dungeon master for his weekly Dungeons and Dragons campaign. It's my pleasure to welcome Jamie Valenti-Jordan to the show today. Hello, Jamie.
Hey there. How's it going?
Great, great. So first question I want to ask you is, tell us a bit about your personal story. Like, where were you born? Where do you live now? Your family, hobbies, kind of your personal journey.
Absolutely. So I'll run through everything. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina. So I bounced around the Eastern Seaboard in my childhood as my parents moved around, but finally settled on Georgia, and then went to the most logical Georgia college to go to, Georgia Tech, where I studied chemical engineering, and fell in love with the food industry through a couple of internships with General Mills. After finding out I didn't like the textile industry with Milliken, but that's on me. Anyway, so went and upon graduation, turned down 6 figures with Exxon out of undergrad, and went to get a master's in food science up at Madison, which is what brought me up here to Wisconsin, where I did exactly that. Fell in love with, again, this time with my wife, who I followed out to New Jersey, and worked with Campbell Soup for a couple of years, doing process R&D, scale up, commercialization, things like that, for mostly their soup lines, but also their beverage lines. So they own V8, for example, right? After she graduated from grad school, we moved out to the Bay Area for 10 years for initially her job, and then I found a job with Del Monte Foods, and worked with them in corporate engineering, designing and building systems to scale from benchtop to pilot, and pilot to full scale. My largest design build's a $17 million facility I did for them, doing sweet potato processing, and converting that into the feedstock for grain-free dog food. So it's actually made out of sweet potatoes most of the time. They went through an acquisition, and long story short, we're going to let one of my colleagues go as part of a headcount reduction, who was 63 and looking to end his career, but he wasn't quite ready to do that because he didn't want to be shortchanged benefits. So I humped out to what was then known as Hampton Creek, is now known as Just, or Just Egg, or whatever Josh Tetrick is calling it these days. And long story short, worked with them for a couple of years. Ended up taking over operations, relaunching all 140 SKUs that they had in 4 months, and gave myself stress-induced pneumonia, which was my opportunity to then leave the Bay Area with my wife and 2-year-old son, to move back here to Wisconsin, and kind of slow the pace of life down, and give myself an opportunity to kind of have balance and give my son a yard and things like that. Which led me to starting Catapult, which is my conduit for continuing to give back to the food industry, in order to kind of meet the needs that the industry is going to be facing over the next handful of years. So yeah, it's been a wild ride so far.
Sounds like it, man. You've been all over the place with big companies. I'm sure you had major impacts there, and learned a lot, which has set you up with Catapult. So
absolutely. yeah, I have a lot of great mentors in my history that I owe all of my success to these days. So I literally have a report that I'm writing that's going to end up being about 12 pages long right now on the details associated with powder handling. That I picked up all the information I needed from the client in one day. So, yep, it's just the name of the game these days.
So when you decided to move back to Wisconsin, did you already have Catapult in mind, or did you come here, land here, get your feet under you here and say, what should I do?
More tried to do the latter. Tried to find positions available in the food industry, which is where my core competency is, from both technical and leadership. And long story short, didn't find anything. Interviewed from everything from third shift maintenance mechanic to VP of operations and everything in between. And frankly, I was either overqualified or underexperienced for
Oh,
every role that I could find. And, even sat down when it started to get frustrating, sat down with the hiring managers and said, well, what would I fit in? And they're like, yeah, we don't have any, we don't know what to do with you.
oh.
So it's one of those things where no one can figure out how to manifest the potential. So I manifested it myself.
Wow, awesome. Great. Good for you. So you have a wife and a son?
That's right.
All right, cool. So question number 2 on that same note is what is a funny story your family tells about you that you'd be willing to share?
Oh gosh. Um, well, they do like to pick on me for owning my own company and creating my own center of my own universe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, it's it humbles me, which is good. Um,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, I think the funniest stories probably come out of simply trying to um, it's not a really good question, honestly.
Well,
um,
I see you're Cub Master, right? So or Pack Master, so you have probably some fun
yes.
with that with the boys. Right.
Yeah.
Is your wife, is she working the business with you?
No, we had an early conversation about that. She's actually a lawyer,
Okay.
and we decided very early on we don't want her associated with
Yeah.
the business. So, yeah.
Okay. Next question. Tell us more about Catapult. This, I kind of gave you gave people a 30,000 foot view, but tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I created Catapult as a way of kind of, uh, let's say, weaponizing my network. So I had built a very robust network over many years um, for no other purpose other than just simply being a nerd and being interested in what other people are working on. And so when it came time to sit down and start marketing myself as a sellable commodity in the services industry, um, it it made it possible for me to call up other people and run ideas by them and things like that, as well as get introduced to not just clients but other consultants in the space as well. That led to finding projects that were broader in scope than I could tackle alone, which led me to grouping with those folks that I knew. They had 20 to 40 years of experience. They're going to be exceptional at whatever it is they do, right?
Mhm.
And so we partnered on a few projects. Those went amazing. And so we figured out a business model that let us keep working together on increasing size and scope and severity of projects. That had turned out to be scalable, and now I have a team of 90 spread across the U.S. To tackle just about anything somebody can throw at us in the technical and operational realm. Um, and we dabble a little bit in the marketing side, a little bit in the sales side, but we're really trying to be there for a variety of food and beverage brands in what they do best. So, mhm.
Do you have a certain size food and beverage company that you like to work with? I mean, you probably can work with all shapes and sizes, but do you kind of have a niche?
um, I think My favorite is everyone's favorite, and that's where you can have the most impact. And those are going to be the scaling groups that are going from, about 1 million in sales to about 200 million in sales. The
Okay.
problem is people don't stay in that range for very long. They either go up or they go down, right? So uh, to that end, we work with groups on both ends of those. So we work with the $0, I don't have a product in the market today, um, groups, and we work with them in a kind of more advisory role and things like that, while we work with the really large brands that have a very specific, mildly undefinable need, and we we help supply whatever it is. We let them define the scope for that, right? And then we
Okay.
say whether or not we can help with it. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I'd say that sweet spot is where you can add the most value and provide the most coaching to let them know what's over the next horizon and help them not only see that but build towards it, right?
Do you also get involved with, international, like EU type stuff, and or mostly domestic?
Um, if it's international, it's usually that they have an interest in entering the U.S. market. They want to understand the U.S. consumer and the U.S. regulatory framework. That's where my expertise is. It's not in EU regulations. So taking
Yeah.
things the opposite direction is a completely different animal. I have partners that I know now that do that, but it's not us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for that. Next question. Tell us a story where someone pushed or inspired you that you realized you could do it.
So someone who inspired me to kind of think bigger than what it was that I was doing is a former colleague of mine by the name of Daniel Scharf. And so Daniel, uh, right at the beginning of COVID, um, you'll remember that everything was shutting down, like everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a large industry event called Expo West that was canceled um, less than 24 hours before it opened. So booths were already set up, everything was already delivered, and I'm sitting there in the airport. By the way, it's held across the street from Disney in California. So I had called up my family, and we were all going to go out there, and I was going to go work, and they were going to play at Disney. Well, they canceled the event, and I kind of looked at them and I said, "Well, we could all go home, or we can have the best time ever at Disney." So we flew out there. Um, Long story short, there were no lines. We stayed in a Disney resort. There
Oh,
was nobody there. We went on every ride that they had before lunch. Left, got lunch, came back, and did them all again. Right? It was ridiculous. A Disney line where they say, "Hey, you want to just go again?" And they don't even take you off the ride. It was like that,
oh,
right?
wow.
Um, but all of this really stymied and stagnated the emerging sector in the food and beverage realm because that was their primary selling event. And no one knew at that time how to recoup from that. So, what Daniel decided to do was manifest all of that need and build a platform literally just on Slack for free, right?
Hmm.
So, he
Mm-hmm.
opened a Slack channel and invited people that were frustrated by these events to go there, which ended up turning into lots of really great ideas bouncing back and forth about, hey, how do I get rid of this product? I can't use it now. Here's the local food bank and things like that. So it started as that, and it grew and it grew. And Daniel really wanted to keep that entrepreneurs only, so that it was entrepreneurs helping other entrepreneurs. As a service provider to that potential market segment, he and I sat down early on and had a discussion. It's like, Daniel, listen, I understand you don't want service providers on here, but I have a lot to offer, and it's literally my kind of call to arms here. Um, and so what he ended up doing was letting us on there on a provisional basis, so long as we only provided assistance, not tried to sell anything, which is exactly what the food industry is, right? Sales will happen, money will flow, things will happen. But at the end of the day, it's all about providing goodwill towards each other because the food industry is too small. And so what he did is he reminded me of this exact fact about the food industry and how we are all here to kind of support and help each other out. Because while I may be the service provider and you're the customer today, you might be my hiring manager tomorrow, right? And
Mhm.
those exact type of events have happened, right? And so with that, I was able to keep my kind of purpose within Catapult and its mission pure without having to distill it down to a bottom dollar. How does this consultant pull every dollar out of every deal? That's
Mhm.
not the point, right? And so Daniel and I have been playing off of each other for years now. By the way, Startup CPG, his platform now has over 20,000 people on it. Um, and he is in one of the top 1% of all global podcasts out there. Um, they've got large deals with multiple groups and things like that. So while I'm jealous of what he's been able to build, you know, he calls out that I'm still the number one contributor to the entire platform. I've answered more questions than anybody else out there, by far. So, and I still do. Like it's literally open right here on this screen right here, um, because I want to keep an eye on the community and make sure that I'm adding value where it's necessary and things like that. So, anyway, so yeah, that's someone who kind of pushed me and reminded me that at the end of
Wow.
the day, the industry is about doing the right thing first and doing right by other people, and everything else will follow.
And you can point to COVID, Disney, and a free Slack channel to put you where
Yep,
you're at today.
that's
That's
right.
amazing. That's great. What is your biggest learning as a business owner now in the past, what, going on 5, 6 years?
Whatever you build, you have to rebuild again later. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
every time you grow in any way, shape, or form, you stress some of your support infrastructure along the way. And at some point, that infrastructure becomes more an impediment to doing your business than actually supporting it. And so you will have to replace it. And you'll replace it. And it might be good for the next 2 years. But that's only 2 years of time that you've bought yourself, right? Now, you don't have the
Mm-hmm.
cash flow necessarily to buy the 15-year solution yet, but in 2 years you might, right? So those are the
Yeah.
types of things where it's you build and you rebuild and you say, hey, this was my pet thing that I built 2 years ago. It's garbage now. Let's throw it out. Let's start over and do it, better this time. Um, and I would say, you know, somebody's going to say, well, why don't you just go to an ERP? Well, that doesn't make the most sense when you don't have the cash flow to support the ERP. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's things like that where, yeah, I know what the right size looks like. I'm an entrepreneur too, right? We're still growing through I mean, I had to talk my team through understanding of different organizational communication models around, hey, I'm a hub and spoke right now, which is great for total
Mm-hmm.
control, but I can't get anything done because I have to field everyone's question. Let's build a web model. Okay, now you guys are talking to each other. That's great. Now we need some more broader communication because web only works up to about 15, 25 people. Now we're 65 people. There's no way to communicate through a web model. You have to switch to a departmental model and talking about, which is something that people honestly understand a lot easier and things like that. Um, but departmental only works so long as people fit in buckets and people aren't little discrete elements that fit in buckets, and so they have arms and legs outside of the bucket in other areas. And so it's just about kind of painting a picture of a model for communication that allows for growth, right? And that's just part of being a business owner, especially an early business owner. As you grow through those different changes, every infrastructure element, even culture sometimes, has to change as you grow.
Absolutely. I'm glad you say that because a lot of people that have experienced or are experiencing fast growth sometimes don't realize that the company is going to change, the infrastructure has to change, the systems have to change, to support the growth and unlock the next level. So sounds like you've experienced that a few times, and hopefully a lot more down the road, right?
Yeah. Well, let's hope I've got the cash flow to support it.
Yeah. All right, next question. If you had to pick 3 people on your business owner journey that you are most grateful for being there to help you get started and grow, who would those 3 people be?
Well, I'm going to start with my CFO, who I first met in his basement as a stay-at-home dad, who had worked as a bank teller and a teacher. He's now my CFO and one of the most sought-after people to find contract manufacturers in the U.S. And I hope he doesn't hear me saying this. He's in the other room, but he's the most diligent person I think I've ever met, who will go through every line entry of QuickBooks to find every possible miscategorization, and do anything that's reasonably asked of him. So if it's, hey, I need you to print this off, go put it in an envelope and go run it down to the mailbox by the end of the day, he'll make sure it just gets done. Or, hey, I need you to look into PPP and figure out what in the heck's going on, to see whether or not we qualify, or any one of a number of things. So him by far. And behind that is my VP of operations, aka the person who continuously upgrades all of our systems. I stole her from Ghirardelli to join me at Just. I stole her from Just to join me here. She is amazing, asks for very little, and is extremely autonomous in continuously upgrading and systems and training people on how to use them. So, she is kind of our super user in all of our platforms and things like that, from our CRM to our, everything. And then, I had somebody who's not here anymore, but my old COO, who was frankly the first person I partnered with on a project. And we realized we had something when we played so well together. But she helped me build all the structures in our system to even understand what our business was and how to court new clients and how to meet their needs and express that we were going to meet their needs as a priority, not bill them for every dollar as a priority, and things like that. So we had a lot of, I think, contentious mission alignment early on. Which
But once you land on it, it's powerful, isn't it?
Exactly. If multiple of you can end with the same destination by the time you get to the end of the discussions, that's awesome, right? That's exactly what you want to have happen. So anyway, so that's just kind of a couple of key points in all this is,
well, the power of team, right? You can't do it by yourself.
Exactly. And honestly, if you think you can do it by yourself, find somebody who thinks you can't, bring them along and have them tell you why you can't, so that at least you have somebody gut checking all your logic.
All right. Last question is, what advice do you have for business owners who are trying to do it on their own? You just alluded to that, but you want to add any more to that?
Sure. I think at the end of the day, it is admirable to want to do it on your own. It is more important for you to recognize where your skill sets are and where they are not. And time management is a skill set. There's priorities and everything. Like, there's a whole mess of things that are above and beyond just technical competence or just the ability to sell anything that come into play in actually owning an entire business. So if you want to try to do it on your own, at least have people who are experts in certain bucket areas that have the ability to speak into your business, even if it's just to you, to be able to make sure that you are going down the right direction and don't get hosed. Experience pays off. It's meaningful. It means something.
All right, thanks. So you've sounds like you've been blessed with some amazing people on your journey. going back 20 plus years. Anything you'd like to say to them?
I have been extremely lucky in having those people around me. I would not have learned nearly as much without them. They know that. They know that who I am, it would be nothing without them. They also know that I was able to listen to them. I have in over here, just off screen, a slide rule given to me by an engineer who retired after 43 years at Del Monte, his entire career. And it was given to me because at the end of the day, he felt like I most aligned with his philosophy of serving those in need within the business. At the end of the day, the service element of this is what gets things done. Whether you are in a larger organization or an entrepreneur on your own who is trying to service the needs not only of clients but of the staff that report into you as well. You have to see all elements of this. And honestly, when cash is short, I don't sleep. It's the reality, right? When I know that there are multiple people's livelihoods and families dependent upon the decisions that I make, I don't know how you can have a large multinational organization and get any sleep ever, because you could absolutely destroy the lives of thousands of people with a bad decision. I think you have to be partially a sociopath to do that type of role, personally. But that's just me. What do I know? But no, I think what I say to the people that helped me get to where I am. Thank you. And I would absolutely be nothing without all the benefit and power and love that have been given to me along the way. So
Awesome. Thank you. And then just to wrap up, if someone wanted to reach out to learn more about Catapult, how would they go about reaching Catapult, or who should they talk to?
sure. So I'll start with the simplest, which is our website, Catapult Serve, CATAPULTSERV.com. On there, you'll find an email address for our leadership team. That includes me. So leadership@catapultserve.com. I assume somewhere in the show notes you'll also see the spelling of my name. I'm the only Jamie Valenti-Jordan out there. So reach out on LinkedIn and say, hey. Always happy to connect and kind of share what it is that I'm doing. Those that are already following me on LinkedIn know that I post very frequently, and they're somewhat entertaining posts. So I post usually about 3 or 4 times a week, and it's usually something along the lines of, here's what I'm doing in my day-to-day life. Did you know that's very similar to what I do at Catapult? And that's the way most of my posts go. I'm told that I'm known for that in the food industry right now, as many VPs and CEOs and whatnot follow me on that. Beyond that, I'm not going to give out my cell phone number anymore, but I've gotten too many phone calls. But no, always feel free to reach out. I am accessible through that leadership team email address. I will likely respond to you in a matter of hours. So.
All right, awesome. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you, Jamie, and thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Corey.